Hip hip tally ho, Joolz Guides here, in which I wander around London telling you fascinating facts. And don't forget, please, to hit the subscribe button and also the little bell, because that will notify you when I upload a new video. And today we are in Balham. We're going to head down this road all the way down to Tootingbeck, around and sort of do a circuit and end up back here. Let's start right over there.
Balham, gateway to the south. From all over the world they come, a pilgrimage to a land of fashion where no two people dress alike. But in quiet corners, we still find examples of the exquisite workmanship that Balham craftsmen have made world famous.
These sort of friezes next to the station are from 1991. They're done by Christine Thomas and Julia Barton. They look like they just depict scenes from the local area, like just everyday people. Did you listen to that recording? So I don't know when it was, but back in, I think it was the 70s or so, there was this excellent comedy recording starring Peter Sellers. And it was written by Frank Muir and Dennis Norden. It's called Balham, Gateway to the South, basically poking fun at these old travel documentaries. Because back in those days, Balham just wasn't that nice. It was quite a scary place to come to. When I was a kid, the whole area over there used to be full of prostitutes. But there's also a video version of it, directed by Mickey Dolenz, who was from the Monkees, you know. And he died, so you can find that on YouTube. It's quite amusing. You'll see what I'm on about. And it also stars sort of little cameo performances by Robbie Coltrane, sort of being a taxi driver and stuff. You know, it's very funny. Oh look, you see over here we've got GW 1899. I don't know if anyone knows what GW stands for. These are bank buildings. On the end, actually, used to be a bank. If you look at old maps of the area, I'm assuming bank buildings refers something to do with a bank that was along here. But I like these little details.
They're very detailed, aren't they? I mean, that's quite...
All over Balham, I've noticed, these very ornate, just beneath that, you've got these kind of floral designs. And lots of the buildings have them. It's all above. It's beautiful, really. It started to get much more built up around here after the arrival of the railways. The railway arrived here in 1856. That was the line that went to Crystal Palace, but this one is from 1863. And they opened the tube station in 1926, and inside they've still retained some of these lovely features. Let's go have a quick look in here. Did you notice that, the lovely newsagent?
I did, it's gorgeous.
It's so nice.
Still got the original joinery inside.
And downstairs, there's a plaque remembering all the people who died in 1940 when this was being used as a bomb shelter during the Second World War. And there were people down there, and this armour-piercing bomb managed to get through the ground. It exploded and it ruptured some water main, and water flooded through the station and it drowned loads of people. I think around 60 people died, and it was a really devastating disaster. Depicted actually in Atonement. I don't know if you've seen the film Atonement, you might read the book. It's the one where Keira Knightley's down there. She's sheltering and all this water comes flooding in. I won't spoil it for you. This crossing, by the way, here, which goes diagonally, I mean, we were taken for granted now. This was the first one in the UK, 2005. Everyone thought it was very fancy. I remember seeing them in Japan, doing it in Tokyo. I just thought that was so high tech. Oh my God. They're crossing diagonally. Yeah. Let's do it. This is Duquesne Court. It's a really beautiful Art Deco 1930s building. When it was built, this was the largest residential building in Europe. Something like 676 flats. I think it's got even more these days. Duquesne was like some rich landowner, owned land around here, and there used to be much more of these Japanese gardens here. Well, the only main survivor these days is this little babbling brook they've got over there. They used to have a billiard room, a restaurant. They've got porters inside who these days don't wear these beautiful uniforms, but they used to have these lovely uniforms. And you can see why they film things like Poirot in here, because it's really quite evokes that era, doesn't it? I don't know if this is true, but there is a story about how Hitler asked for this not to be bombed. You know, I'm always going on about this. First I said about Whiteley's in Bayswater, and then I said that Senate House. There were all these claims that Hitler, when he invaded London or Britain, he was going to use these places for his headquarters or something. But one of the reasons why people think that he wanted this place protected is if you look at it from above, the actual shape of the building looks a bit like a swastika. In fact, if you knock down a couple of the walls, you could turn it into a swastika. So people would say, oh, that's the one that he wanted to use. But I think that might be balls. So carrying on down this big main boulevard. In fact, look, that's called Boulevard Mansions up there. And it says, yeah, Boulevard Mansions, 1901. And you got more of those lovely floral designs that I was talking about. It just gives you an idea about the times when most of the stuff was developed around this area. And this church here is now Christ the King Church. It's now the main Polish, there's quite a big Polish community in Balham. And the church was built in 1883. And the reason why you've got Pope John Paul II there was obviously he was the Polish Pope. I think he was put here as a kind of, to commemorate 100 years since the miracles of Fatima. Back around 1916, 3 Catholic shepherd children living near Fatima in Portugal reported seeing apparitions of angels, and later the sun sort of started zigzagging around the sky, blocking out, and 100 years later, Pope Francis declared that this was a true miracle, and I believe the shepherds were actually canonised, turned into saints as a result. Do you remember those t-shirts you used to get in the 1980s? I like the Pope smokes dope, and they always used to have a picture of Pope John Paul II on them. Did you ever have one of those t-shirts, Simon?
No, I don't remember.
Oh, you could buy them in Camden Lock. I don't believe that it was true that the Pope smoked dope, but it rhymed, so that was good enough for them. Just opposite the church is the Polish White Eagle Club, which is a community centre for Polish people. But before it was the White Eagle, it was the 211 Club, where the Krays used to come. I don't think they owned it. I think it might have been their friend Freddie Foreman who owned the place. But it was here that Mad Jack the Hat... Wait a minute, I'm getting him confused with Mad Jack McMad, winner of last year's Mr. Madman competition. Jack the Hat McVitie, he was a real loud-mouthed drunk, and he was kicking off in here and sort of smashing the place up, much to the embarrassment of the Krays. 1960s gangster twins, you know, the Kray twins. I think Freddie Foreman was kind of like their hitman, so they had him thrown out, but I think eventually it ended up quite badly for him because they murdered him and he was dumped outside the church down in Rotherhithe. And just next to the White Eagle Club is the Balham Spiritualist Church. Spiritualism was founded in 1848 by the Fox sisters. They had started to claim that they could hear knocking sounds whilst communicating with the dead. Later on, one of them, Margaret Fox, she owned up to the fact that she was making the knocking sounds, but then later she retracted it. And anyway, the whole spiritualism movement gained ground, and actually they moved here in 1957, and that's the one Arthur Conan Doyle was quite taken in by. The famous incident where these girls were photographing fairies, to the extent that he was constantly getting into arguments with Harry Houdini over it, who just didn't believe it at all. So they have seances and communications with the dead, and it's founded on the 7 main principles of spiritualism. I don't know what they are, you'll have to look it up, but there was one very famous guy called Daniel Douglas Home, and he famously floated out of the window. He actually levitated himself. He floated out the window about 20 feet into the air and then floated back in again, and no one can quite figure out how he did it.
Did anybody witness this?
Yeah, I believe they did. Balham stands nearly 10 metres above sea level, and opposite the White Eagle Club, you've got the Falconbrook Mansions, which isn't particularly much to look at. That's where the tram depot used to be. That whole section there was all taken up by trams and everything. But it's called Falconbrook Mansions after the Falcon Brook, because the Falcon Brook is another one of these underground rivers. And what do underground rivers mean, Simon? Stink pipes. Normally, I think they normally mean stink pipes. I haven't actually looked that up, but let's see if we spot some stink pipes along the way, because the underground river of the Falcon Brook does run right underneath here.
Are we going to a stink pipe? Is that what
Well,
you're
there may
leading
be
us-
some along the way. All I'm saying is that sometimes, or I've noticed, usually,
Yeah.
along the routes of these underground rivers, you usually, which because they've been turned into sewers, most of them,
Oh,
that's
I
when
see.
you see these
Right.
stink pipes,
I
which
see,
take
yes,
smelly,
yes.
smelly sewer smells out and up into the air. Not to be mistaken for old sawn-off lampposts.
This is the busy High Street, focal point of the town's activities, and at once we are aware that these are a hard-working people who carry out their tasks in offices called coffee shops. This shows the manifold activities of Balham's thriving community, whose high-fibre diets are amply demonstrated by the elevated number of a novel feature, the humble stink pipe.
Look, I do see a stink pipe, Simon. You see, so my theory is correct, I think.
Where?
I think there's some... look, over the road. Okay, look, come this way. Look, it's okay, there's no traffic, Simon. You'll be okay, you'll be safe. Come on.
Oh my God.
You'll be safe. Stay calm. Stay calm. Look. You got to keep your eyes open, Simon. Look at that there. That's well hidden. And one thing I
stink
haven't
pipe.
looked
Look.
up actually
Oh, yeah.
is whether they are still functional. Like, do they still deliver the smells from the sewers out into the air? So I'm wondering if anyone can tell me that. That'll be interesting to know, because whoever is moving into this flat, when they open their window afterwards, I wonder if the smells are going to go right up beneath their window. Because typically these would be a lot taller than that. Because, like I said, this didn't used to be flats. This used to be like just the tram depot. Someone's got a window right above there. I wonder if when they open it, they just smell like, oh, bloody hell. Look, there's that church that we were talking about at the beginning of our tooting video. Don't forget to watch my tooting video, which is also available on my website and on YouTube. So that one, we start over there at Tooting Beck Station, and then we walk down the other direction. But actually, we're going to swing off around the corner there. But first, I want to go into the Sewing Machine Museum and also Craft Superstore, because this has got everything you need for your sewing needs.
As you can see, we have craft sections
Yeah.
and art section.
Is this where Tom Daly comes and gets his wool? That's nice. I love a jumper like that. Say I wanted to put a little ribbon there, change the ribbon along there. What?
Yeah, we have grow grey that would go perfectly. These are all our fabrics, which run to the end of the shop.
Look at
Then
that.
you've got upholstery fabrics at the back there.
Wonderful. What a lot of stuff.
Was the exact same day and month that Thimonier applied for his patent for the sewing machine.
Hey Jules, you're right. This is one of the first ever sewing machines to have been invented.
What? That's a sewing machine?
That is a sewing machine. This was made by a French gentleman called Barthélemy Thimonier, but we believe that he got to this point of prototypes at around 1839.
They're beautiful, all these, aren't they? Some of them are
they?
real works of art.
They
if
are.
you
I
don't mind my
will say
saying.
the Thimonier does look like a milking store. So as far as beauty goes, not so much, but important piece of history.
Actually, you're doing all right there, actually. It's a tiddler, ain't it? But it works. Look at the size. This is for tiny people.
Yes, but unfortunately back then people weren't as long as you are. Queen Victoria's sewing machine.
There
This
she is.
machine was commissioned and given as a gift to Queen Victoria for her eldest daughter's wedding in 1865. It was made by a German company called Pollock Schmidt & Co.
It's hard to pick out on here, but I
Yeah.
can see it with my eyes. I think people should have to come and see for
I
themselves.
think so
How
too.
often are you open?
On the
when can?
first Saturday of every month between 2 and 5.
Right, and that's just the museum, but the rest of the shop is.
Oh, the shop is open Mondays to Saturdays every week except for bank holidays on a Monday. It suits you. The gentleman who did own this did used to have a monkey to take the money from the punters, but what they started doing, because they thought it was funny, was heating up the coins with matches and burning the monkey's hat.
Oh,
So he swapped it for a parrot.
look at that fella there. It's an example of these road signs you get around here that the fact that it only says SW rather than SW17 is an indication that it's possibly from before 1917. Here in Drakefield Road, but do you want to see something very cool? Go over here, Simon. If you walk along just here on the right, look down here. You see these little things on the wall there? Look at that. That G, what's it say? 486 or something? G64, is it? Anyway, these are references to the bomb shelters. I don't know how it worked because I wasn't here during the war, but they had bomb shelters around here and you were attributed a certain bomb shelter. I think each house or each street had to go to their certain one or something. I think this was an indication of where they were supposed to. I think there was some along here or something. But anyway, it's something to do with bomb shelters during the Second World War and telling you where to go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, nice then, isn't it? I like the fact that that's still there. Let's go along here. Further along the street you can see where a bomb dropped actually, because those houses clearly built like after the war. So all these houses down here, all stretching down towards Tooting Commons, part of the Heaver estate it's called, Alfred Heaver. He was a property developer back in the 1890s. Most of these were built. And look, they've got these beautiful, like I said, floral kind of designs up on the, what's that called, the eaves, is it? Got over 1,000 houses all like this around here. They're not all the same, quite varying in designs and stuff. Poor old Alfred Heaver, he was murdered in 1901 by a member of his family. Anyway, he built all these lovely houses first. Look, again, you've got this feature where you have these names. Shenley, Langham.
I think the first owners probably named them themselves.
Yeah.
Like naming a ship or a boat, you know.
Look, that's a joke on Streatham. They've called it St. Wreatham. Oh, come on. It's almost like someone must have called theirs Balham. It's like a personalised number plate almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone's just called Brendan.
What would you call your house?
Bernard.
Bernard, yeah, Barry.
We now enter the verdant pastures of Tooting Commons. Just along here is Dr. Johnson Avenue. He's known to have come down here when he used to come and visit Henry Thrale, so they've named it after him. But these oak trees have been here since, well, I think these may have been replanted, I don't know, but the first oak trees were here in the time of Queen Elizabeth I. It's not when she used to visit this area to visit Sir Henry Maynard. I don't know if it was one of her fellas. It probably was. She was always coming down to South London on booty calls for meeting blokes. I remember she used to go down one of the rivers to South London to go and visit Sir Walter Raleigh. The Falcon Brook River runs directly beneath here, actually. I don't know if this Henry Maynard was one of her lovers. Probably. I mean, they call her the Virgin Queen, but I don't believe a word of it. I think she had all these favourites. I bet that was one of them.
An example of their truly philanthropic spirit is this rubbish bin, placed here centuries ago by the people of Balham, considerately disguised as a water fountain, so as not to ruin the landscape. Don't worry, old fellow. If it's water you want, try Tooting Bec Lido. It might look like a prison from the outside, but within those bars, the UK's largest freshwater open-air pool has been delighting bathers since 1906.
This is where, you know, in the film Snatch, you know when Brad Pitt's having that fight, there's that punch that comes and it completely knocks him out and he goes in slow motion, he sort of flies up in the air, horizontal, and he plunges into a pool. That was filmed in there. It's lovely. Isn't it beautiful here? Butterflies fluttering by. And that would be terrific to have the Lido. It must get very, very busy during the summertime. But at the moment, it's not all that busy.
Obviously, originally, it wouldn't have that big metal cage around it.
Yeah, I doubt that, yeah.
It's like it's holding velociraptors or something inside.
Look at these lovely, beautiful houses here on Bedford Hill with more of that ornate floral kind of brickwork design. Down here, actually, this just opposite those, amongst what looks like a bit of a housing estate, is the Priory. This house over here, this rather splendid looking place, it's now been turned into flats. But back in 1876, this was the venue of a Victorian whodunit.
Oh.
These days it's just turned into flats, but you can imagine it as a wonderful big home back in the end of the 19th century, when a widow called Florence was living the life of Riley here after having inherited loads of money from her husband. And she ended up having an affair with someone quite a lot older than her called Dr. Gully. And there was quite a lot of scandal because he was 37 years older than her. So to restore her reputation, Florence decided to marry someone called Charles Bravo, but he kept beating her up and treating her really badly. So obviously there were a lot of fingers pointed at her when all of a sudden Charles Bravo was taken seriously ill for 4 days and died an agonising death here, having ingested some sort of poison called antimony. Some suggested it was Florence getting her revenge for all the violent treatment towards her. But the housekeeper, Mrs. Cox, claimed that he had told her of his intention to commit suicide. But this was ruled out because guess what? Charles Bravo requested for his bath water to be saved that day. He said, don't throw away my bath water because I want to reuse it tomorrow and have another bath. No one else heard him talk about suicide. In actual fact, he was very chipper on the day that he died. Agatha Christie was very interested in the case, and she thought that one of the only people who could possibly have done it was Dr. Gully. Anyway, at the inquest, they just recorded an open verdict. Eventually, they said, well, actually, this was a murder that took place, but we don't know who did it. It remains a mystery to this day. One of the people, funnily enough, who attended the scene in order to figure out why he was so ill was Dr. William Gull, Queen Victoria's surgeon, who many people thought was Jack the Ripper. Someone actually lives in there, Simon. Someone actually lives in the very room now, in the flat where that poisoning took place. This is Emmanuel Road here, and Manuel Road is named after Emmanuel College, Cambridge, who used to own the whole of the area around here. It was known as Hyde Farm, ever since the 1500s actually. So before they built all these buildings in the 1890s, that area behind there was belonging to Emmanuel College, Cambridge, which is why that road over there is called Scholars Road, probably a reference to the scholars at Cambridge University. Now just roughly opposite Scholars Road over there, if we go into the bushes, up against here, look, points to me, points, because this, it's hard to make out actually, but that says Clapham 1877. So this was the marker showing that this was the edge of the parish of Clapham, which I think was like just north of here. There we go, just bordering on the railway there. Look at that, see? Can easily miss that. Lucky I didn't, eh? Who cares, you may ask. Between 1896 and 1916, a fellow by the name of Edward Dashwood built all these lovely houses here, which were for war veterans, people who had been injured in mostly the Boer War and then the First World War, for wholly or partially infirm, suffering, stricken, wounded or otherwise infirm men, whether their disablement arises directly or indirectly from wounds, accidents, disease or otherwise. Later on they created a kind of committee or whatever, and Douglas Bader, I don't know if you've seen that film Reach for the Sky, he's in the Air Force and he loses his legs and he still goes on to become a, I don't know, squadron leader or something. He was on the board of governors for these houses, so I believe they still have veterans living in here, which is why further down the road there you've got quite a lot of disabled parking bays. They still have quite a few people, well now presumably from the Second World War and even from later wars. Here on Burn Road. I was just reading a little blog by a fellow who used to live here in the 1940s. He's moved to Australia now, but he was reminiscing about this street and saying about, he lived in one of these houses along here, and he said these flats along here, they didn't have any bathroom at all. They didn't have inside toilets back in his day. And when he came back, he could barely recognise them because he came back, I think, in the 90s or something to have a look at them. And he just found it's all become quite gentrified now and it's all quite posh. But back in the old days, they were considered almost slum quality. At the end of the road there was where all the prostitutes used to go hanging out. You know, it was quite well known for it. Out here you just have loads of kids screaming in the street, playing outside. There are no kids playing outside anymore. You don't
it's the
get
sound
that.
of playing children.
When we
playing
were
and stuff.
young, you used to have that.
As we near the end of our journey, it is clear that Balham is a land of truly contented, law-abiding citizens who need no invitation to obey the rules as they go about their everyday tasks, enjoying the thriving music scene.
See, I was right, Simon. Look, you see, just to the right of that part, I've got across the road here. Look, another stink pipe. You see? Another one there. They're all over this area. Must be something to do with these underground rivers which have been turned into sewers, I assume. And Bedford, that started life as a hotel in 1876. But these days, it's a rather excellent pub. It's a great venue for a band to perform. My friend's brother performed there. Hi, Nina. And the famous Banana Cabaret Comedy Club. So, yeah, Eddie Izzards and Joe Brand and Al Murray, they've all performed in there. But the most important thing, well, as far as I'm concerned, is that that's where they held the inquest, the coroner's inquest into the Charles Bravo murder inquiry. You know, the Victorian whodunit. That's where they held the inquest, but they couldn't establish who done it. So it remained unsolved. Dan.
Hi, Joolz.
Hi, nice one. Oh, can you show us around?
Yeah, of course.
This is terrific. I mean, look at this wood panelling and everything.
All the original wood panelling. We tried to keep it as it was. So what this place used to be was a private bowling gentleman's club. It was first established in 1893. These are still some of the original scoring cards we have where people used to keep track of the points.
It's a big old pub as well.
it's a-
See what I mean about these radiators, by the way? Look at that one there, look. That's fantastic, isn't it? It feels like being at school.
Yes, it is very much.
Being at school. I used to play with a racket like that. And look at the I mean, this is just, feels like I'm in a movie.
We've actually had a bit of filming and stuff happen up here, people using it either for like dance videos, the little bar to do private comedy nights, weddings, receptions, a wake or two.
Do you do food in here as well?
Yes, we have a lot of good food here. One that I'd probably recommend the most is the Balham burger. It's quite popular, to be fair, with the locals.
Excellent choice, old fellow, and what better way to finish our trip than with this local delicacy, the Balham burger, invented here in Balham.
Cheers, Simon. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's free to subscribe. It's not really subscription. It just makes me look good. It just means that occasionally you'll be notified if I upload a new video. So that's really helps me out. And don't forget to go over to my website where you can see lots of other videos. And you can even buy some splendid Joolz Guides merchandise as modelled by Simon today. See you next time. Cheers.